Question 1. Who is ultimately responsible for crafting the sprint goal during sprint planning? A. The product owner. B. The Scrum Master. C. The entire Scrum team. D. The developers. Answer: C. The entire Scrum team. The sprint goal is a collaborative effort crafted by the entire Scrum team, the product owner, Scrum Master, and developers. The product owner proposes how the product could increase its value in the current sprint, which provides the initial objective, but the final sprint goal is negotiated and agreed upon by everyone to ensure a shared understanding and commitment. This collaborative process is crucial for creating a cohesive plan and fostering collective ownership over the sprint's outcome. For example, the PO might suggest a goal of launching a basic checkout feature, and the developers will work with the PO to refine this into a realistic goal based on the selected product backlog items. Always remember that while the product owner brings the why, the entire team works together to define the what of the sprint goal. Question 2. If the developers finish all the items in the sprint backlog with time remaining in the sprint, what should they do? A. End the sprint early and start the next one immediately. B. Ask the product owner to add more items from the product backlog. C. Work on activities that improve the product's quality or the team's effectiveness. D. Wait for the sprint to formally end before starting any new work. Answer: C. Work on activities that improve the product's quality or the team's effectiveness. If the developers complete all their planned work, they should not end the sprint early, as the time box provides a consistent rhythm for the business and stakeholders. Instead, they should use the remaining time to improve the product or their process, such as by working on technical debt, enhancing automated tests, or performing additional product backlog refinement. This ensures the sprint's duration remains a fixed learning cycle and that every moment is used to add value, even if it's not through a new feature. Think of the sprint as a container for value creation. If the primary package is filled, you can still add protective packing material, like quality improvements, until the container is shipped. Question 3. A new manager asks the Scrum Master for a detailed report on the individual performance of the developers. What is the most appropriate response for the Scrum Master? A. Create the report for the manager, as transparency is a key Scrum value. B. Refuse to create the report, stating that individual performance is not tracked in Scrum. C. Coach the manager on how Scrum focuses on team-level performance and invite them to the sprint review to see the team's collective progress. D. Direct the manager to the developers so they can ask them for the information directly. Answer: C. Coach the manager on how Scrum focuses on team-level performance and invite them to the sprint review to see the team's collective progress. An effective Scrum Master serves the wider organization by helping it understand and enact Scrum, which includes shifting the focus from individual output to collective team outcomes. Providing an individual performance report would undermine team cohesion and the Scrum value of respect. The best action is to coach the manager on Scrum principles, explaining that value is delivered by the team as a whole and that the sprint review is the formal event where the team demonstrates the real, tangible progress made on the product. This approach educates the manager while protecting the team's self-managing nature. Remember, a Scrum Master's role is often to be an educator and coach for the entire organization, not just the Scrum team. Question 4. During the daily Scrum, the developers are having a deep technical discussion about how to solve a complex problem, and the 15-minute time box is about to expire. What should the Scrum Master do? A. Extend the daily Scrum time box to allow the developers to finish their discussion. B. End the meeting and tell the developers to schedule a separate meeting to continue their discussion. C. Remind the team of the time box and facilitate a quick refocus on inspecting progress toward the sprint goal. D. Take note of the problem and solve it for the team after the daily Scrum. Answer: C. Remind the team of the time box and facilitate a quick refocus on inspecting progress toward the sprint goal. The primary purpose of the daily Scrum is for the developers to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog for the upcoming day, all within a 15-minute time box. While problem solving is important, the daily Scrum is not the venue for it, it's a planning event. A good Scrum Master will gently enforce the time box and purpose of the event, ensuring it remains a quick, focused synchronization point rather than a lengthy problem-solving session. The developers can then decide to meet immediately after the daily Scrum to dive into the technical details. A key tip is to view the daily Scrum as a quick huddle to align for the day, not the main problem-solving workshop itself. Question 5. Which statement best describes the definition of done? A. A checklist of tasks that the product owner must complete before a sprint ends. B. A formal description of the state of the increment when it meets the quality measures required for the product. C. A document outlining all work that must be completed to release the product to the market. D. The sprint goal that the developers commit to achieving during the sprint. Answer: B. A formal description of the state of the increment when it meets the quality measures required for the product. The definition of done is a critical element of Scrum that creates transparency by providing everyone a shared understanding of what done means for a product backlog item. It is an agreed-upon standard of quality that an increment must meet before it can be considered releasable. For example, a definition of done might include criteria like, code is peer-reviewed, unit tests pass, and documentation is updated. This ensures that every increment is of usable quality, supporting the empirical pillar of transparency and enabling inspection at the sprint review. Think of the definition of done as the team's quality contract. Anything that meets it is truly finished. Question 6. Who is accountable for managing the product backlog? A. The Scrum Master, who ensures it is well formed. B. The developers, who provide estimates for the items. C. The product owner, who is responsible for its content and ordering. D. The stakeholders, who provide the requirements. Answer: C. The product owner, who is responsible for its content and ordering. The product owner is the single person accountable for effective product backlog management, which includes creating and communicating items, ordering them to best achieve goals, and ensuring the backlog is transparent and understood. While the developers provide insights on effort and the Scrum Master may coach on techniques, the final accountability rests with the product owner. This clear ownership is essential for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the developers. For instance, the product owner decides that a user login feature has a higher priority than a change password feature based on user needs and business goals. The key takeaway is that product backlog management is the product owner's primary tool for steering the product toward value. Question 7. A developer is struggling with a task and feels they cannot complete it. They are hesitant to mention this because they don't want to seem incapable. Which Scrum value is most needed to overcome this situation? A. Focus. B. Commitment. C. Respect. D. Courage. Answer: D. Courage. The Scrum value of courage empowers team members to do the right thing and work on tough problems, which includes being transparent about impediments and challenges. In this scenario, the developer needs the courage to speak up about their struggles so the team can collaborate on a solution. A culture of courage ensures that problems are surfaced early, preventing them from escalating and jeopardizing the sprint goal. The other values are also important, but courage is the specific value that enables an individual to be vulnerable and honest for the good of the team. A simple way to remember this is that it takes courage to say, "I need help," or "I made a mistake." Question 8. What is the relationship between the increment and the product backlog? A. The increment is a separate artifact that replaces the product backlog at the end of the sprint. B. The increment is the sum of all the product backlog items completed during a sprint and the value of all previous increments. C. The product backlog is a list of all work needed to create the final increment. D. The increment includes all items from the product backlog, regardless of their completion state. Answer: B. The increment is the sum of all the product backlog items completed during a sprint and the value of all previous increments. The increment is a concrete stepping stone toward the product goal, representing the cumulative value delivered over time. Each sprint, the developers create a new increment by turning selected product backlog items into a done, usable version of the product. This new increment is then added to all the increments created in previous sprints, meaning the product grows and evolves with each cycle. For example, if Sprint 1 created a login page, Increment 1, and Sprint 2 adds a user dashboard, Increment 2, the total product now includes both, integrated and working together. The key concept is that each increment is additive, building upon all prior work to form a single, cohesive product. Question 9. Who has the authority to cancel a sprint? A. The Scrum Master. B. The developers. C. The CEO or a key stakeholder. D. The product owner. Answer: D. The product owner. Only the product owner has the authority to cancel a sprint, although they may do so after consulting with the stakeholders, developers, and Scrum Master. This is a rare and disruptive event that should only occur if the sprint goal becomes obsolete, for example, due to a sudden, drastic shift in market conditions or company strategy that makes the current sprint's work irrelevant. The product owner's authority in this matter is a reflection of their accountability for maximizing product value. If the sprint no longer contributes to that value, they have the power to stop the work. Think of this as an emergency brake. It exists for extreme situations but is rarely used because of the significant impact it has on the team and its rhythm. Question 10. Several Scrum teams are working on a single product. What is the best approach for the definition of done? A. Each Scrum team defines and uses its own unique definition of done. B. There should be a single, integrated definition of done that all Scrum teams mutually develop and adhere to. C. The product owner defines the definition of done for all teams. D. No definition of done is needed, each team is self-managing. Answer: B. There should be a single, integrated definition of done that all Scrum teams mutually develop and adhere to. When multiple Scrum teams work on the same product, they must share a common definition of done to ensure their combined work results in a single, integrated, and potentially releasable increment. If each team had its own definition, integrating their work would be difficult and might reveal that the combined product is not actually done. Creating a shared definition of done is a collaborative effort among all the teams to establish a consistent quality standard for the entire product. This ensures transparency and a truly shippable increment at the end of each sprint. The takeaway is that for a single product, you need a single standard of quality, regardless of how many teams are contributing. Question 11. What is the primary purpose of the Sprint Retrospective? A. To demonstrate the increment to stakeholders and get feedback. B. To plan the work for the next sprint. C. To inspect how the last sprint went with regard to individuals, interactions, processes, tools, and the definition of done. D. To provide a status update to management on the team's performance. Answer: C. To inspect how the last sprint went with regard to individuals, interactions, processes, tools, and the definition of done. The Sprint Retrospective is a formal opportunity for the Scrum team to inspect itself and create a plan for improvements to be enacted during the next sprint. This event focuses on the process and teamwork, not the product itself, which is the focus of the sprint review. The goal is to identify what went well, what problems were encountered, and how those problems could be solved to increase quality and effectiveness. For example, the team might decide to improve their communication by trying a new tool or to adjust their definition of done to prevent future defects. The retrospective is the heart of Scrum's inspect and adapt cycle for the team and its processes. Question 12. What are the three pillars that uphold every implementation of empirical process control? A. Planning, execution, and control. B. Courage, focus, and commitment. C. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. D. Product, process, and people. Answer: C. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Scrum is founded on empiricism, the theory that knowledge comes from experience and making decisions based on what is observed. This is upheld by three pillars: transparency, meaning the process and work are visible to those performing it and those receiving it; inspection, meaning the Scrum artifacts and progress are frequently examined to detect undesirable variances; and adaptation, meaning the process or product is adjusted when an inspection reveals it is deviating outside acceptable limits. For example, the daily Scrum is an event for inspection and adaptation of the plan for the day, made possible by the transparency of the Sprint Backlog. Always remember this trio: transparency, inspection, adaptation, as it is the engine that drives the entire Scrum framework. Question 13. A sprint is a time box of 1 month or less. What happens if the work plan for the sprint is found to be more complex than anticipated? A. The sprint is extended to allow the developers to finish the work. B. The product owner removes items from the sprint backlog. C. The developers work with the product owner to negotiate the scope of the sprint backlog to meet the sprint goal. D. The Scrum Master assigns more developers to the team. Answer: C. The developers work with the product owner to negotiate the scope of the sprint backlog to meet the sprint goal. Sprints have a fixed duration and cannot be extended. This fixed length provides a consistent rhythm and learning cycle. If the developers discover that the work is more complex than expected, they collaborate with the product owner to adapt the plan. The sprint goal remains the unwavering objective, but the specific product backlog items in the sprint backlog might be adjusted or renegotiated to ensure the goal can still be achieved. This upholds the principle of adaptation while maintaining focus on the most important outcome for the sprint. A key tip is to remember that the sprint goal is fixed, but the plan to achieve it, the sprint backlog, can be flexible. Question 14. Who is responsible for ensuring the Scrum team adheres to Scrum theory, practices, and rules? A. The product owner. B. The Scrum Master. C. The developers. D. The project manager. Answer: B. The Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is a servant leader for the Scrum team and is responsible for promoting and supporting Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide. This involves coaching the team members in self-management and cross-functionality, helping them focus on creating high-value increments, and removing impediments to their progress. The Scrum Master ensures that all Scrum events take place and are positive, productive, and kept within the time box. Essentially, the Scrum Master acts as the guardian of the framework, ensuring it is understood and enacted correctly to maximize its benefits. Always think of the Scrum Master as the team's expert coach on the game of Scrum. Question 15. The sprint review is a formal event for which primary purpose? A. For the Scrum team to present a status report to stakeholders. B. To inspect the outcome of the sprint and determine future adaptations for the product backlog. C. For the product owner to formally accept or reject the work completed. D. To conduct a detailed demonstration of the new features for training purposes. Answer: B. To inspect the outcome of the sprint and determine future adaptations for the product backlog. The sprint review is a working session, not just a presentation, where the Scrum team and stakeholders collaborate on what was done in the sprint. Its purpose is to inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog based on feedback, new insights, and the current market landscape. This event provides crucial input for the next sprint planning and ensures the product continues to evolve in the right direction. For instance, after seeing a new feature, a stakeholder might provide feedback that leads the product owner to reprioritize an upcoming item in the product backlog. The main goal is collaborative inspection and adaptation, making it a key empirical event. Question 16. What does it mean for the developers to be self-managing? A. They can choose to ignore the product owner and work on whatever they want. B. They internally decide who does what, when, and how to accomplish their work. C. They do not need a Scrum Master because they can manage themselves. D. They are not accountable to the organization for their results. Answer: B. They internally decide who does what, when, and how to accomplish their work. Self-management means that the developers, as a team, have the autonomy and authority to make their own decisions about how to turn product backlog items into a done increment. They are given the what, the sprint goal and selected items, and are trusted to figure out the how on their own, including task allocation, technical approach, and daily planning. This empowerment fosters creativity, ownership, and commitment, leading to better solutions and a more motivated team. Self-management does not mean they can ignore the product owner's priorities, it means they have control over their internal process for achieving those priorities. Question 17. Each of the 3 Scrum artifacts contains a commitment to provide focus and transparency. Which of the following correctly matches the artifact to its commitment? A. Product Backlog - Sprint Goal. B. Increment - Definition of Done. C. Sprint Backlog - Product Goal. D. Product Backlog - Product Goal. Answer: D. Product Backlog - Product Goal. The 2020 Scrum Guide introduced formal commitments for each artifact to enhance focus and transparency. The commitment for the product backlog is the product goal, which is a long-term objective that provides context and direction for the backlog. The commitment for the sprint backlog is the sprint goal, which is the objective for the sprint. Finally, the commitment for the increment is the definition of done, which ensures quality and a shared understanding of what done means. Remembering these pairings is crucial. The product goal guides the product backlog, the sprint goal guides the sprint backlog, and the definition of done ensures the quality of the increment. Question 18. During a sprint, the product owner identifies a new, high-priority market opportunity. What should happen? A. The developers must immediately stop their work and start on the new opportunity. B. The product owner must wait until the next sprint to introduce the new item. C. The product owner can negotiate with the developers to see if the new work can be accommodated without endangering the sprint goal. D. The Scrum Master tells the product owner that no changes are allowed during a sprint. Answer: C. The product owner can negotiate with the developers to see if the new work can be accommodated without endangering the sprint goal. While the sprint goal should remain stable, the composition of the sprint backlog can emerge throughout the sprint as more is learned. The product owner and developers can collaborate and negotiate scope changes, but this must be done carefully to ensure the sprint goal is not put at risk. The developers have the final say on what they can accomplish within the sprint. This flexibility allows the team to adapt to new information while still providing a focused, stable objective for the sprint. The rule of thumb is, protect the sprint goal at all costs, but the plan to get there, the sprint backlog, can be adjusted through collaboration. Question 19. What is the recommended time allocation for product backlog refinement? A. It should be done in a single, mandatory 4-hour meeting before each sprint. B. It is an ongoing activity that should consume no more than 10% of the developer's capacity. C. It is not a formal activity in Scrum and should be done on an as-needed basis. D. The product owner is solely responsible for refinement and should not involve the developers. Answer: B. It is an ongoing activity that should consume no more than 10% of the developer's capacity. Product backlog refinement is the act of adding detail, estimates, and order to items in the product backlog. While not a formal event, it is a crucial ongoing activity to ensure the backlog is ready for future sprints. The Scrum Guide suggests that this usually consumes no more than 10% of the developer's capacity. This is a guideline, not a strict rule, meant to prevent analysis paralysis, while ensuring items at the top of the backlog are well understood and ready to be pulled into a sprint. This activity is a collaborative effort between the product owner and the developers, ensuring a shared understanding of the upcoming work. Question 20. Who owns the sprint backlog? A. The Scrum Master. B. The product owner. C. The entire Scrum team. D. The developers. Answer: D. The developers. The sprint backlog is created by and for the developers. It is their plan for how they will achieve the sprint goal and create a done increment during the sprint. While the product owner helps select the items during sprint planning and the Scrum Master facilitates the process, the sprint backlog itself is owned and managed exclusively by the developers. This ownership empowers them to adapt the plan throughout the sprint as they learn more, making real-time adjustments to best meet the sprint goal. A simple way to remember this is, the product backlog belongs to the product owner, but once items are pulled into a sprint, the resulting plan, the sprint backlog, belongs to the developers. Question 21. At the end of a sprint, a product backlog item is not done because it failed one of the criteria in the definition of done. What happens to this item? A. It is included in the increment, but marked as incomplete. B. The sprint is extended until the item is fully done. C. It is moved back to the product backlog for reordering by the product owner. D. The developers work overtime to finish it before the sprint review. Answer: C. It is moved back to the product backlog for reordering by the product owner. In Scrum, work is either 100% done, or it is not done. There is no concept of partially done work being included in an increment. If a product backlog item does not meet every single criterion in the definition of done, it is not included in the increment and provides no value for that sprint. The undone work is placed back on the product backlog, where the product owner will reevaluate its priority and it may be re-estimated and considered for a future sprint. This strictness ensures that the increment is always of usable, high quality and that transparency about progress is maintained. Question 22. What is the maximum prescribed length for a sprint retrospective for a 1-month sprint? A. 1 hour. B. 3 hours. C. 4 hours. D. 8 hours. Answer: B. 3 hours. The Scrum Guide provides time boxes for events to ensure they are efficient and focused. For a 1-month sprint, the sprint retrospective is time-boxed to a maximum of 3 hours. For shorter sprints, the event is usually shorter. This time box provides enough time for the Scrum team to conduct a thorough inspection of their processes and create a concrete plan for improvement without the meeting dragging on unnecessarily. The Scrum Master is responsible for ensuring the event happens and that attendees understand its purpose, and they often facilitate to keep it within this time box. Just remember the rule of thumb: for a 1-month sprint, it's a 3-hour retrospective. Question 23. The purpose of a sprint is to produce a valuable and useful increment. What is the role of the sprint goal in this process? A. It is a summary of all the technical tasks the developers will work on. B. It is a flexible guideline that can be changed daily by the product owner. C. It provides focus and a single objective for the developers to work toward. D. It is the same as the product goal. Answer: C. It provides focus and a single objective for the developers to work toward. The sprint goal is a single, coherent objective for the sprint that provides focus, flexibility, and a reason why the team is building the increment. Rather than just working on a disconnected list of items, the developers are united by a common goal, which helps them collaborate and make trade-offs during the sprint. For example, a sprint goal of enhanced search performance gives the team a clear purpose and allows them to adjust their plan, the sprint backlog, as needed to achieve that specific outcome. The sprint goal is a critical part of Scrum because it encourages the emergence of a cohesive, valuable increment. Question 24. A stakeholder is unhappy with the progress of the product and wants to change the priorities in the middle of a sprint. They directly approach a developer to make the change. What should the developer do? A. Make the change, as stakeholders are important for the product's success. B. Tell the stakeholder that no changes are allowed during a sprint. C. Implement the change but inform the product owner afterwards. D. Redirect the stakeholder to the product owner to discuss their concerns and any potential changes to the product backlog. Answer: D. Redirect the stakeholder to the product owner to discuss their concerns and any potential changes to the product backlog. The product owner is solely accountable for managing the product backlog and its priorities to maximize product value. To prevent conflicting priorities and protect the developers from distractions, all stakeholders must go through the product owner to request changes or discuss the direction of the product. A developer should politely redirect any such requests to the product owner, who can then assess the stakeholders' needs and decide how to best incorporate them into the product backlog for a future sprint. This ensures that a single, clear set of priorities is maintained, which is essential for the Scrum team's focus and effectiveness. Question 25. Who participates in the sprint review? A. The Scrum Master and the developers only. B. The product owner and key stakeholders only. C. The Scrum team and key stakeholders. D. The entire organization. Answer: C. The Scrum team and key stakeholders. The sprint review is a collaborative event that involves the entire Scrum team, product owner, Scrum Master, and developers, and the key stakeholders they have invited. The developers demonstrate the done work, the product owner discusses the state of the product backlog, and the stakeholders provide feedback and ask questions. This interaction is vital for inspecting the increment and adapting the product backlog based on real-world input. It is not an event for the entire organization, but specifically for those with a vested interest in the product's development. Think of it as a focused feedback session between the creators and the consumers or sponsors of the product.